A little more, like, show me then what happened next. I'm sure there's reasons they can't. Funny, that, like, some of them.
Taylor, are you seeing the presentation?
Yeah.
Yes, I am.
I find it interesting.
Why aren't we seeing that?
Agree, they must have signed off on their, like, this to be shared or so. But some were blurred, some were, they
I'm
know.
not.
We're blurred. I mean,
Or do we not name
it's
her?
public
Have you
record.
seen it now?
Now I am.
People can request it.
Are we live?
Yep, we're live.
Right.
All right, folks, we're gonna go ahead and get started. We're gonna get started here. Welcome to the Sherwood City Council Work Session, May 6, 2025. It's 3 minutes after 6 p.m. We got two items on the agenda tonight. First is Family Justice Center is here for our annual chat and fun stuff. We decided to do it in a work session because this is more conducive to a really good conversation.
Yeah, I really like
than
this,
having
actually.
Present you guys. And then the second item is that we're gonna have an update on building business license fees. So with that, we'll just jump right into it. Craig.
Thanks, Mayor.
Yeah.
I'll just turn it over to Rachel and she can take it from here, but she actually made it this time, so she's just gonna do some talking out of their informal presentation tonight. So Rachel, wait.
Thank you so much, and thanks for having me back. I promised up and down that I wouldn't mess it up this time, and I didn't. I'm very proud of myself. Judy can't be with us tonight. She sends her regrets. She has to pick up her grandson. So thank you so much for having me, and especially in a work session. I'm actually really excited about this. This is different and kind of special, so thank you. What I have up on the screen is just our report, which got sent out to all of you guys, and I'm gonna talk through it, but like always, recapping 2024, what happened at the Family Justice Center, what is sort of the state of the services in the county, and then how is that impacting Sherwood? What kind of services are you seeing for people that identify as being a resident of Sherwood? So a couple things. This is very dense, but I just want to share some highlights with you. So in 2024, the number of services and the number of survivors that we served increased. The last 4 years that I've come and shared this report with our cities, I've said the same thing. Our services have increased and the number of people that we are seeing increases. That sounds like a bad thing. I am not in a line of work in which you want to see your numbers going up year over year. But in this case, I do feel positive and hopeful that that's happening. So when I came to the Family Justice Center, we were in the middle of COVID. It was 2021, and we were seeing a huge repression in numbers of people that were able to seek services safely. Saw a 30% dip of child abuse reports across the state. We saw a big dip in numbers. We only saw about 1,200 people that whole year. And nationally, including in Washington County, we saw that homicides were going way up. In Washington County, we were at a 20-year high of homicides, and the leading driver of those homicides was family violence homicides. And so we knew that violence was happening, but we weren't seeing people, because if you are, you have to shelter in place with something that's not safe, then abuse is going to get worse. The traditional ways that people who are experiencing abuse find out about services is not necessarily researching them on their phones or their computers. It is hearing about it in the community. It's being connected to people. It is seeing information in libraries or on city websites or at resource fairs or at their kids' school for registration day, that sort of thing. And we didn't have access to any of those things. The only place that you could really go was some supermarkets. And even then, you're not really getting a whole bunch of community resources at the supermarket. And so we saw a big suppression of those numbers. What I think we're seeing now is a catch up of those things. One of the things that's really challenging, though, and continues to be challenging, is that Oregon sees higher than the national average rates of domestic and sexual violence. And so for domestic violence, about 42% of women experience that, 39% of men, and then for sexual assault, 57% of women experience sexual assault here in Oregon. And so This year in 2024, we served 7,200 survivors. That is not 42% of Washington County's population. And so the reason I'm glad these numbers are going up is because that means we're starting to reach the people that need those services. So there was also a couple driving factors in 2024 where we increased what we were offering to the community in a couple of ways. So one really big and really important way was a partnership with all of our law enforcement agencies in Washington County, and we have a very strong relationship with our law enforcement, with our court system, and then also with our attorney's offices. And what that led to was a countywide risk assessment that now when there are calls for service for domestic or sexual calls, law enforcement will do a risk assessment with the victim to see at how much risk are they if they were to be in contact with the person that harmed them again. That risk assessment is then transmitted and shared with the jail, the court release officers, the court and judges themselves, the district attorney's office, so that there is an evidence-based way of making decisions about the supervision needs of the individual and whether they should be released or whether they should be held pre-trial. That's a really important move for our community because it helps keep survivors safer. So one of the reasons that we were working so hard on that was the homicide rate. I said that we were at a 20-year high. The leading driver was family violence. We needed to make a dent in that. We needed to know where our limited resources in Washington County needed to go when we were talking about offender accountability across the system. So now we have a single unified risk assessment that gets done with every call across Washington County, whether it's in Sherwood, whether it's out in Banks, whatever that looks like. That then led to much better collaboration and much better resources for survivors on the back end, because when you have officers on scene doing that assessment with that survivor, they can easily then say, oh, you're experiencing all these things, here are these resources. They already handed out Family Justice Center cards, but that just adds a layer of training for all of our officers about what kind of danger these individuals could be in. And in fact, in 2024, we saw an 80% reduction in homicides in Washington County. So there was huge returns right away, which is fantastic.
Is that all homicides or homicides related to?
Family violence homicides. Yep. Then a second thing that we did, really brought a lot more people to the Family Justice Center, was we have had a food pantry for several years now, and it was very small and very modest, and it was, food was provided by our local churches, which was fantastic. They got food from the food bank, and then when they had extras, they shared it with us, and so we picked it up and we stocked it on a couple shelves. It was wonderful. It started to become there was greater demand. And so at the end of the pandemic related food benefits program, our local churches no longer had extra food. There was such a need in the community because SNAP benefits went so much farther down that they couldn't keep up with the demand. And so we turned to the Oregon Food Bank ourselves and worked to set ourselves up as a food bank site. I had no idea what level of need there was going to be, and we provided almost 23,000 pounds of food last year, which is unbelievable. That really just completely blew away what I thought we were going to provide services for. And then finally, we were able to utilize our Survivor Advisory Committee using a grant as outreach. And so as survivors themselves, they were doing outreach in the communities that they lived in, so that they were using their lived experience to help support survivors in the community. So when we're talking about those health fairs, those tabling events, those school resource things, when somebody were to go up to the table, they'd be able to talk to somebody that was a survivor themselves, rather than talking to a staff member or maybe somebody that didn't quite have that ability to connect with that individual. And so those are just some of the programs and that we added in that brought our numbers up, as well as just catching up with the need in the community. Yeah.
On the 23,000 pounds of food in a year, do you know what average that is per week, like the households or people you're serving?
The households and people, that's a really good question. I could break that down. I know it by month. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know that we were picking up 1,100 pounds of food per week. And so that is probably, that's serving about 250 people per month. Yeah.
And is that daily? The day
Yes.
that they come in daily?
Yeah, so what is unique about our food pantry, I learned is unique, I didn't think that this was something that was unique, is that the Oregon Food Bank, typically you have to be what's called an open site. Everybody from the community can come, which is wonderful. I 100% support that. With the Family Justice Center, we only want survivors coming. And so in conversations, our program director was like, we can't just advertise this, open it up to the community, things like that. So this is an unadvertised one, which is unique for them. The other thing is people can come back and get food as often as they want to. There isn't a monthly cap, there isn't a weekly cap, anything like that. And that is important for survivors because one of the leading drivers of going back into an abusive relationship is not having access to basic needs. Because typically there's so much control, financial abuse we see in 99% of cases. If you don't have those basic needs, if you can't feed your kids, if you can't pay your bills, if you can't do any of those things, then you can't leave. It's not that you don't want to. And so food and having essentially a survivor-only grocery store becomes incredibly important for those folks. And so it became just a hugely utilized service.
Are you in the new facility now?
We are not yet. We're going to be moving in January.
Is it January? Okay.
Very excited about
So
that.
is it mostly dry goods and canned goods or do you have?
We actually get fresh, yeah, fresh food, eggs, milk, yeah, meat. Unfortunately, right now with the pause in USDA funds, Oregon Food Bank, maybe you guys know, got hit pretty hard with that, don't have access to those things. That cut our weekly 1,100 pounds of food down to 300 pounds. So right now, we're doing a lot of local drives, like the Rotary Club. They just did a huge drive for us, which was absolutely fantastic. I got 2 carloads of food, which
That's
was
what it ended up
wonderful.
being.
Yeah,
I saw all the food at the
yeah,
expo center.
yeah.
That's
They
awesome.
they really did an incredible job.
Great.
But yeah, that has turned into a big need. We're trying to find different ways. We've approached Trader Joe's, the different grocery stores, but it's just a tough time with all that stuff. Cause
And will you
prices
have
for
a
grocery
dedicated
stores-
space in the new location then?
We will, yeah. So the new building will have a grocery store style. And so it'll have the shelving, it'll have the coolers, it'll have all that type of stuff. And Oregon Food Bank is hoping to, so it's a little bit challenging for them because our current space is so small in order to sort of like make it work out for them. With this new larger space, they're actually, it's less of a burden on them, even though it would be more food, because it allows them to get more bulk.
Condos, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So provided services to 7,200 survivors, that equated to 11,691 individual services for survivors. So one of the things that I track on a regular basis is how many services per survivor. So we have the 18 agencies, and each one of those agencies is providing their services to survivors. And so what I want to make sure of is that each survivor is able to access multiple different services, because that means that the idea of the Family Justice Center is working, not just that survivors are getting services. And so what I want to see on a regular basis is that that number is trending upwards. And so now we're looking at about 3 services or 3 agencies per survivor when they come to the Family Justice Center, which is great because that means we're doing exactly what we thought we wanted to do. This big experiment here in Washington County is when you come to the Family Justice Center, you can access multiple services, better case coordination, homicide reduction, all that type of stuff. And then one of the things that so you can see these services and how they break out. So what are the highest need services and then on down. These are some of the impact numbers. And so you can see I pulled out this year on how many individual things we did. So 346 survivors had their court cases at the Family Justice Center as opposed to going to the Washington County Courthouse, for instance. 701 crisis calls were routed to our partners' crisis lines after hours. So our phone number, once we're closed, essentially turns into a phone tree for all of the agencies in Washington County. So again, people only have to call one number, they'll have to come to one location. But the thing that I really like is the experiences that survivors themselves are reporting. So 99.4% of survivors reported that they experienced trauma-informed care while receiving services. 100% reported that they received the help they needed to keep their family safe. 100% reported that they felt cared for by staff, and also their children felt cared for by staff and partners at the Family Justice Center. And 89.2% of survivors reported that after their visit, they can see their path towards safety, healing, and hope.
It's phenomenal.
It is.
Yeah.
It really is. That's what means the most to me is we can say all of these things, but the people that are actually there, are they having that experience? And so that's what really makes the biggest difference to me.
I'm curious,
Go
how does this intersect with the homeless challenge that we have? You know, 'cause with the SHS and all the work they're doing, supportive housing services, and is there a nexus there between what you're doing in those communities out there that we're also trying to help?
Yeah, that's such a good question. And it's a multifaceted question, so I'm long-winded, so I'll try to be short about it. One, escaping domestic violence or family violence, so including child abuse, is the number one driver of homelessness. 90% of kids that are homeless because they left a home where there was child abuse. 56% of women and children are homeless, are because of leaving domestic violence. So that is a huge nexus. What I see a lot of is the root cause of a lot of these big issues that we're seeing in Washington County, in the Portland metro area, across the country, with untreated mental illness, substance use, homelessness. That all goes back to abuse. Not 100% of it, but a vast majority of it. And so there's that nexus. We work with shelters all the time because they need training. They have so many people that are experiencing this. How do they navigate and provide appropriate services for people that are there because of domestic violence or child abuse or things like that? And then also there's a huge risk of homelessness, like I said, when the number one cause of going back into abusive households is because of a lack of basic needs. One of those is shelter all by itself. So a lot of people stay because there is no access to shelter. They make that choice first. I had somebody tell me that they would rather stay in their home than be homeless. And they knew what they were there for. So we had to create a safety plan around how do you be safe with somebody that's not safe with you, because that was the choice that they had to make. So access to shelter is a huge need for survivors. Luckily, the Domestic Violence Resource Center, they operate the 3 shelters for domestic violence in Washington County, but it doesn't near meet the need that they have. And so there's a really tight connection, I would say.
Do you feel the SHS, because part of the values we've been talking about in the SHS work group, Metro, is part of its prevention. So how do you keep them from going into homelessness in the first place? How is there a good partnership with Washington County with SHS to try to prevent that in the first place and getting them direct into some kind of shelter or even permanent housing as opposed to going homeless and then getting those services?
Yeah. If there is, I'm not really strongly familiar with it, but I think that there should be, because the prevention of homelessness in those cases is the prevention of violence, the services for violence prior to somebody going homeless. And I know that the I'm sure the Domestic Violence Resource Center sits and has those conversations, I'm sure, but I think there needs to be a broader conversation about it. Yeah,
I might call you, pick your brain.
that would be great.
Thank you.
I would love that. Yeah, there's a huge intersection. I can send you some data if you would like it.
That would be awesome.
Okay, that's great. I love data people.
Hope you have
oh,
some
that's
data, like-
Oh, okay, that's great. I love it.
I think real numbers are even so critical.
Yeah. Okay, so demographics, so, the majority of individuals that we serve at the Family Justice Center, identify as something other than white, with the majority identifying as Hispanic or Latino. That's interesting to me because Washington County's population, on the whole is 78% white and 22% people of color. And so we are seeing, which is good because unfortunately, populations of color have disproportionate impacts with violence and abuse. And so it's good that we are seeing the populations come to and trust the Family Justice Center. But it is also micro illustrating that what we are seeing in the disproportionate impacts.
Do you have that same data based on class, like economic level?
I don't.
That'd be interesting.
It would be really interesting.
Right, sorry for that.
What's challenging about that data is that people that are escaping domestic violence or child abuse under HUD's definitions are automatically categorized as in poverty. And so the class data is pretty flat. Similar to Medicaid populations, they automatically qualify for all those things.
So someone experiencing domestic violence, they're automatically assumed to be low income?
They're automatically assumed to be at risk of homelessness.
At risk of homelessness, okay.
Yeah, under
That-
HUD's
that makes
definition.
sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then the city of Sherwood. So I added in here since 2021 for this year. So FJC has provided 21 Sherwood survivors with 35 services, which is a 17% increase over 2023, which I think is great. We're increasing the outreach out here in Sherwood. We're increasing the presence. Since 2021, we've provided 70 services with 70 survivors with 119 services from the city. Now, we do not get, the majority of people don't identify where they are coming from. So this is based off of the people that have identified where they're coming from. And people from smaller communities are less likely to identify where they are coming from. The majority of people just say Washington County.
What percentage roughly?
What percentage?
Okay, if you don't know.
I actually don't have that.
But it's more than half that don't identify their towns.
Yeah, it's right in that area, yeah. Cause it's an
If
odd,
half, then maybe the number's double. Okay.
maybe so, yeah. And it depends on, it depends on lots and lots of different daily factors where they could identify one day and not the other day, kind of a thing.
Sure.
But this is what we're looking at for Sherwood's data, which I think is great because it's increasing. We've increased our partnership with you guys. We've increased our outreach in here in Sherwood and working on increasing our visibility. So I think that that's fantastic to see our efforts working. And then finally, we just have some nice pictures of things that we did over the past year. So Senator Merkley presented us with the flag that flew over the US Capitol for a community impact, which I thought was really cool. Run for Hope 5K, then we have the family food box distribution, holiday shop with Santa, our survivor art gallery, and then our peer outreach team, which is lovely.
What's your budget?
Our budget this year is 1.3 million.
You guys are doing a lot of work for 1 million. I mean, that's incredible.
How many staff members do you have?
We now have 8, 2 of the staff members are temporary. Yeah.
That's really impressive.
Yeah, the partners that are there, the ones that
Yeah,
have
yeah.
services, they fund their own or.
Yes. they fund their services and then we work collaboratively on some of the services. Some of the things that we work most collaboratively on is like emergency safety services, so like plane tickets, hotel rooms, transportation funds. Like we're working on one right now where we're picking up the gas card, somebody else is doing the hotels, another person's doing the plane ticket, another person is doing the rent once they get into their new home, that sort of thing.
Awesome. Taylor, you have a question?
Yes, first of all, fantastic job. I love what you're doing. You had a little mark on there that said that there was a $10,000 grant or whatever from the city. Have you and I know you don't like advertise, but how have you used that money to kind of reach out to Sherwood people, or you said it was kind of just word of mouth and things like that? Is there anything that you're doing to, do the police know more about you? Do you present to them? Is there anything you're doing with Sherwood that is helping drive those numbers so that those people that need the help know where to call?
That's a great question. So we have one of our peer outreach members is a Sherwood resident. And so they are really committed to getting information into the schools, going to the family resource fairs, those sorts of things. Also, we tabled at the Robin Hood Festival last year, which was fun. And so tabling at those events, and then also printing and distributing materials. So the Sherwood Police Department has the Family Justice Center survivor cards that they hand out at every one of their calls. And then also making sure that all of our libraries, including the Sherwood Library, has both the printed materials and the electronic materials. And then our Director of Services meets, I think it's quarterly, maybe they do it half a year. All the school counselors, like the heads of the school counselors, come together and do a big thing. And so she meets with them and gives a presentation to make sure that that's happening.
Do we have signage and handouts in our library?
I believe so. If they're out, then we'll definitely get them more. And if you guys have more, like each community is unique. So like if there's city newsletters that are really popular or certain places that are really popular that you would want to make sure that this information is regularly, like let me know and we'll make sure that that's happening.
Yeah, I mean, there's two places that I thought of off the top of my head. One is certainly our newsletter. That's the third one, I guess. But the second one would be our senior center. We have a counter and flyers and a bulletin board, and there might be a place just for some permanent stuff there. And then across the street from that,
Yeah.
somebody's gonna have to help me. Is it the Share Center?
Yeah, Share Center.
Yeah, the Share Center might also be a place. And then yeah, those are the ones that came off the top of my head. Those are that might have vulnerable people at it.
Okay, I think that's great. If anybody could connect me or share the information, that would be great. Yeah, and we'll make sure that they're regularly stocked with all those things.
If you have the information, I do a class at the Y
Do you?
regular basis, so
Okay,
I could take the information there.
okay, perfect. Awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Well, thank you for coming. This was
Yeah.
better than sitting at the
I agree. This
little
was
testing
great.
table.
Yeah.
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 Always much better.
And I'll share the long-term impact data with you.
Yeah, and you mentioned some statistics about root causes and how domestic violence can be
Yeah.
the root of like drug addiction and some of these other issues. Any data you have on that would be great too. 'Cause
Yeah.
that's a big conversation point.
I'll send that over. Yeah, and if you want to drill down even more specifically into like, why is it higher in Oregon? I can send that over to you as well.
I think as we talk a lot, don't do nothing enough.
To
That's
me, and I have some personal stories, in this area.
Yeah.
But the single point of entry is so huge.
Yeah.
Anytime you're in any kind of trauma, whether it's medical or this or anything, like navigating the web of all the available things, it's overwhelming to people. And then I think the other part of it that's so huge is having other survivors there, right, that people can talk to. Like, it's so much more, I think it can be so much more impactful a bigger lifeline when it's with somebody who's, you know, walked in those shoes, so to speak, so.
It's true. Very much so. Our Denim and Diamonds Gala is on May 31st. You guys may have gotten invitations. And then we will be moving into the new Family Peace Center in January, and we'll have a grand opening in April. That we will absolutely expect you all to be.
Is that when you're going through the name change? That's when you open the new? I really like that.
Me too. Yeah, I think it's much more meaningful in a lot of ways.
That's just.
Yeah.
Kind of be a scary word sometimes, depending, so.
Yeah.
It can, and not everybody gets it, is what we've heard.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it.
You tell Judy we missed her.
I will, absolutely.
All right, we're gonna move on to our second item on the agenda, item 2. Update on building and business license fees. I see Eric there waiting in records.
Good operating contribution.
I was thinking the same thing.
Been flat at this number for 5-6 years. Feels like we need to.
We should have her do this SCEP grant.
What did you do last year?
10.
We've been at 10 for like 5-6 years. That would be like, this is not, and then I think the bang for the buck is there, yeah. Unlike some other things.
All right, Eric, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Rosener, City Council. I'm joined by our building official, Jared Bradbury. You guys haven't got a lot of FaceTime with him, so happy to have him at the table tonight.
Welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, so let's just jump right in. Just as a reminder, community development covers planning, building, economic development, code compliance. Mostly tonight, we're going to be talking about building fees, but also business license fees. Business licenses are just kind of captured, administered by community development generally, so I'll touch on that as well. The last fee schedule update we did for building was 2021. From what I can tell, we haven't been really consistent over the years in updating this on an annual base. Planning, that planning is mostly subject to the 2%, so that we just kind of chip away at that every year. Building, for the most part, is not subject to the 2%. And so it's a little hit or miss, but I'll get into details about the last fee update and the proposed one. So four main fees to talk about tonight. Community development fee is the largest, technology fee, business license fees, and then also kind of the general permit fee, potential increases as well. So just jumping right in, the first one and really the largest potential fee increase would be community development fee. It would be a new fee for Sherwood, but it's not new to Oregon or to some of our partner and other local jurisdictions. So the proposal from staff is a 0.5% fee of the project valuation. When an applicant comes to the building department for building permits, not for other type mechanical plumbing, but for a building permit for residential or commercial, they're going to put the value of the project on the application form.
What is our current rate?
0. There's no fee right now.
And this isn't subject to the 2%,
No.
the new fee, charter thing? Okay.
So they put the project valuation down. This would be 0.5% of that project value. Surrounding jurisdictions, City of Newburgh has a 0.75% fee and City of Westland has a 0.25% fee. So this would be in the middle of those. It's a little bit of a busy table there, but just walk you through it. So fiscal year on the left here, the last 4 fiscal years that we have data for, total project valuation is the total project value that the building department processed and building permits. So 2021 was right after the pandemic, our slowest year in the last 4, and that was $34 million in value. The busiest year we had was last fiscal year, 23-24. We had Sherwood Commerce Center come in, and so the building department that year processed $75 million in project valuation. On average, over the last 4 years, the numbers here at the bottom, 57 million. And basically all this is different rates, 0.25%, 0.5% and 0.75%. So what staff is proposing is this 0.5%. And if it was based on the average, the revenue annually would be there. Yeah, good. You have a
And if we
question?
go up that low year, it's like 325 average, roughly.
Yeah, sure. We've gotten through some big projects recently in basically last year. And then this year as well, we're processing phases 2 and phases 3 for Sherwood Commerce Center. So we do expect the next few years, probably 2 years until we can get Ice Age Drive in to not be that last year. It's not going to be 75
Sure.
million. It's going to be, probably around 60, maybe a little bit less than that. Projecting.
These go where?
Currently planning building our general fund in terms of revenue and expenditures. So that's sort of the high level overview in terms of impact to customers. Yeah.
That's thanks.
Yep. Perfect. Impact to customers. Just an example. So 150,000 square foot flex industrial, fairly typical for what we're getting in the Tonkin employment area. It's a large building. That's the buildings that this is a pretty large building. The project valuation would be 13 million and the proposed fee at 0.5% would be $65,000. That's about equivalent to the building permit fee that they pay right now. So it would be approximately double the fee. When they're looking at total fees, it's not anywhere near double because they have system development charges, and that's where the highest dollar amounts really come in, is when they're paying into the sewer, water, transportation system, and sometimes for those types of projects it could be $1 million or more. So in terms of overall costs, including SDCs, it's on the smaller side, but it is a significant increase in terms of obtaining a building permit.
And as people are looking at jurisdictions to move into, do you think this would be a hindrance from them wanting to come to Sherwood then? Because now we have this fee.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think if you want to do business in Sherwood, we have the land, and this is going to be a fairly minor consideration, in my opinion. Please.
So I've been doing a lot of research in raising our fees, and in the area, our fees are lower compared to Newburgh, Tualatin, Tigard, Beaverton, Hillsborough. So even the building permit fees themselves are lower than other jurisdictions. So with this added fee, we would still be lower than some of most of our neighbors.
And I'll get
Taylor,
it.
do you have a question?
Yeah, I mean, that may have answered it. I was gonna ask about the totality of it, and I know we're in the middle or the low on this particular fee, but I wanted to look at it as a whole. And I think that's answered it, but my second comment was gonna be, is there any way to carve this out for things, and maybe we have to do it when we do zoning for new Sherwood West. If we say, hey, we want this to be affordable housing, it seems like we're at a little bit at odds if we are tacking $2,300 onto the price of the house.
It's a really good point. But of course, on the other hand, the state keeps taking away our ability to raise funds, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
And so to talk to that point specifically, Councilor Giles, on a 2,500 square foot house, project value about 475, and the proposed fee at 0.5% would be 2,300. I would reiterate what Mayor Rosener said. We're likely to face additional state mandates after this session closes. It's very likely they're not going to be funded unless we just adopt the model code, and even then, there's going to be some cost to the planning department. And in terms of I think it's important to consider the impact to our customers. But speaking for community development, our costs are going up, personnel just across the board, and we're facing more and more requirements, basically mandates to get completed. So,
Well, if we were going to do an affordable housing project per se, like subsidized housing or something like that. First of all, we probably wouldn't do it in Sherwood West. We'd probably do it somewhere closer to services. But that requires that we bring in nonprofits and other sources of funding to get to that point anyways, which would offset some of this.
sure. And I'll say if the city council wanted to adopt a policy to encourage, workforce or affordable housing, you guys could certainly do that. The building official does have the ability to waive or reduce fees. And so if we got that policy direction from you through a resolution or something like that, it would give the building official and city manager the ability to waive those fees.
Do that, can we peg that to sales price? Right? If your unit price is below a certain dollar amount, the fee's waived or something like that.
130% of median family income or something like that.
Like an.
Yeah, or just, yeah, or whatever, yeah.
That's the point.
If, well, I love that idea. We just have to look into the details.
Yeah, a lot
It would have to be like
Theoretically,
yes.
or something like that.
Yeah, how do you guarantee? That'd be a tough one to.
Cause I could come by it and sell it the next day, right? Yeah, so just have to make sure it's on the longer term. Yeah, I love the idea.
Yeah.
But I think generally speaking, if the council was interested in carve outs, we could get that direction from you and then implement it.
Yeah.
So
As a side note, we're lobbying Salem heavily now for the 4 million that we need for the Brookman Cemetery line.
Yeah.
5. So 5, so that too is, if we can get that 5 million, then we don't have to pass it on in SDCs for all the new housing going into that basin, so that's other ways we can attack that problem.
so I'm gonna move on from this fee unless there's more discussion.
Oh, thanks.
This one much more minor and is really being driven by our transition to Acela. So it's a proposed 3% technology fee. This would be charged 3% to the permit fee, so not to the project valuation. Relatively minor, all things considered. So same example, 2,500 square foot home. The fee would be approximately $72. That would help us cover things like iPad. Jared's got iPads now to go out and do inspections. We are required to get software to run the program. Great that the program is free from the state, but there still are some costs to us. So
So another way to think of that is they're paying for access to that portal where they can submit all their stuff online, track.
Sure, yeah.
Communicate.
Yep,
So-
and
Not have to come in and.
I think when we started this, probably got some good feedback from contractors, I assume, about ease of I think inspections is really the big one.
Plan that printing costs. Oh,
Yeah, sure.
When I was in Newburgh, the project right across from the hospital, they spent $200,000 in printing. Because they had so many revisions and whatnot, and each time they sent it in, it was 300 pages of, full-size plans, and they'd had to do it multiple times, so they spent a significant amount of money. And so switching to electronic plan review and, the e-permitting program is, it's easy.
Massive savings for
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Yeah.
small place. That would be. That's it.
offsets, the value, more than offsets this plus the other fee that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By having this as a separate technology fee, is there an advantage or will it stay just for the technology instead of just increasing the permit fee by X amount?
Currently, all of the revenue and all of the expenditures are general fund. So, I think certainly at the department level, we're tracking the cost, including for technology and just kind of in the accounting kind of pairing stuff up. So we have not been in the practice of like restricted funding. And I think that's generally.
Like, I'm looking at it from a consumer, like you see the permit fee and then you see all these potentially additional fees.
Why not just say
Yeah.
2472?
Instead of having that grouped into just a fee, I don't know if there's consideration for that at all.
It's an interesting question. So what's the customers that are gonna see this? Is this generally general contractors and developers?
Yeah.
So they're gonna have to understand it.
Yeah, and it's a very common fee. And actually, 3% is probably the lowest that I've seen. Beaverton has 5%. It goes anywhere between about probably 2.5 up to about 10% technology fee.
In other jurisdictions, it's broke out and it's called technology.
Yep, it is.
So developers are used to
Every-
that.
Yeah. This one is fairly typical these days. Yeah.
Frankly, on this one, I'd rather be a little bit higher if they're seeing, $1,000 worth of benefit, charging them $100 to get that benefit does not seem unreasonable to me, but I'll leave it to you guys for your recommendation.
How much do we think this will raise? Good question.
Not a lot. This is probably between 10 and 15,000 total.
What's our SaaS fees for the building permit software?
No direct fee. It's the indirect fees. So the Acela is no direct cost, but in order to do plan review, we have to have Bluebeam. And so there's certain costs. It's probably, by the time you bring in iPads for inspectors,
The monitors for doing the electronic plan review.
monitors, it's probably about a wash. I mean, the costs are probably about 10 to 15 in technology costs. So
We're covering our costs.
I'd say we're approximately, yeah. Moving on. This is just the general building fee increases that staff is proposing. So 7.5% increase in your baseline permits. That'll be building, mechanical, plumbing. Again, we haven't increased these fees since 2021, so it's been 4 years. So the average of that would be 1.87, it's under 2% annually, under our 2% cap for other fee increases. We are proposing increases to the percentage of the cost for plan review. So basically how it works is you have a permit fee for mechanical, for example. Sometimes there's no plan review associated with that, so you just pay your permit fee. If a plan review is required, typically how it's done is a percentage of the permit fee. And right now, our plan review fee for most are 30%, which, as Jared mentioned, is relatively low for our region. We see them anywhere from about 30 is in some cases, but approximately 50 all the way up to 100%. Actually, some jurisdictions, Wilsonville, I think, is charging 100% of the permit fee as a plan review fee. So we're proposing an increase to 50% in this case.
I agree with these. The second thought would be we should probably annualize these increases and not wait 5 years in between the next one.
Happy to take that feedback and bring it back.
Not in our normal fee, are these not in the fee schedule?
They are in the fee schedule. We did a pretty big update in 2021, and so there was from the previous building official, the feedback was to not raise the fees, but Jared and I have
So
got.
they're in there and they get looked at every year in our fee schedule, so it's just sort of.
Annual update would be
Yeah.
good.
I'm on the same page.
Yeah.
And frankly, 1.87's, I mean, that's really low compared to just basic inflation.
Absolutely.
Let alone
Extremely low.
PERS inflation.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it just, the cost,
I mean, it's-
From a development standpoint, the costs of the development have gone up way more than that.
If you want to step it and do 7.5 this year and 7.5 next year, I won't object. If you want to change that to 12.5 this year, I won't object.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys are interested in increasing the fees, this is just a staff proposal, so we're happy to take that feedback and bring something.
Part of it's all, the totality of the revenue we're generating for the work that we're doing, making sure that the revenue we're generating is covering all the expense that we're doing, both what the day-to-day business of meeting the needs of our customers, but also adhering to all the new mandates and requirements that are put upon us by the state.
absolutely. With keeping in mind the earlier conversation, as we start looking at affordable projects, we have carve outs.
Yeah, there's always abilities to do things.
So this,
That's why we need to have that conversation. We keep talking about it, but we never actually have the conversation.
It's gonna come up during comp planning for sure, but yes, we gotta have that conversation.
so when you were talking about raising the technology fee maybe a little higher than where we were at here, some of the stuff we have been looking at is AI driven for building plan review. Would you like us to look at that cost and add that fee into that? So
I think that's an area where AI could make a ton of sense.
Yeah.
Because AI is a buzzword and people sell it for a lot of things that it's not ready for. Doing this kind of work, like scanning through thousands of documents, it's good for us.
Kristen and I just met with somebody today on this, so it's about bringing innovation. So and that's one of your goals.
I'd be open to that.
Technology fee, I mean, 5% of
Yeah, I'll do it.
surrounding.
It might be that you don't know, and you know, from a budget standpoint, you need to do it at 3 now, and you learn more, and you do an addendum, and
I think
July.
Austin's reduced like their plan review cost, but. AI plans.
great.
I saw that on the consumer.
But Austin hasn't had to deal with all the state mandates that we've managed.
No, but they have a much friendlier state environment there.
Yes.
If you talk to them, they don't think so, but they have no idea.
Austin. And then moving on, the last fee to talk about tonight is our business license fee. So our current, way we currently charge for business licenses is if you're a business inside Sherwood, it's $75 plus $6 per employee. If you're a business located outside Sherwood and you're coming into Sherwood for something, fireworks stand or something like that, then you'd be at 107.5 plus $6 per employee. We do provide a discount currently, 5% for new and small businesses, 5% for businesses headquartered in Sherwood, and then 5% if you're a manufacturing technology business for a max 15% total reduction. The proposed fee schedule, and I'll go over it in more detail, would be simplified based on number of employees in a category, and then a 10% discount for businesses headquartered in Sherwood. So what that would look like is so the categories, if you will, buckets of number of employees, 0 to 2, 3 to 5, 6 to 10, and then onwards. And then the next column there is the existing fee. So for a 0 to 2 person business, currently it would be anywhere between $81 to $87 for a business license. The proposed fee would be $105 if you're located outside Sherwood. For businesses, local businesses, I'm calling them inside Sherwood, it would be $94 for a 0 to 2.
I understand that. So like if it's McDonald's coming in building another business, would that be an outside business? Or
That'd be an outside business.
Okay, even though they have a physical location use.
Correct.
So it's, okay.
What if it's the franchisees only business?
We would probably use that discretion at the time and potentially grant that,
And does this? My only concern is on the smaller size, especially with like a restaurant, which
Yeah.
has a lot of part-time employees. Are we doing FTE or are we doing?
Yeah, it would be, so we can approach it multiple ways. The current business license fee is if you're 0.5 or more, that counts as one. We could do it that way. We could also say.
Self-reported, right?
Yes, it is.
We're not going in and counting them.
We have not been heavy-handed on business licenses ever in the city.
We'd like businesses to have more full-time employees, so we don't want to create incentives.
Sure,
Not to do that.
Yep. So there's multiple ways we can count them, but in every case will be fair, of course. And then just moving down to the really, the largest type of employer, 51 or more employees. Currently, if you have 51 employees, the fee would be $375. This is where really the big change comes in with this fee proposal. But if you're outside Sherwood, it would be jump to $1,400. If you're a local business headquartered here, it would be $1,200. Probably
So
fair.
if they have 51 or they have 100, it's 1417. Doesn't change.
I would add another tier.
Yeah.
75 plus.
So when I look at this, the 0 to 2 and 3 to 5, fine.
Add another tier, like.
And it really jumps up.
And then the 21 to 50 and the 51 or more are fine. The 6 to 10 and the 11 to 20 are the ones that I'm like, this
They're
feels
still
like
small businesses.
we're kind of hitting some small business. I mean, it doesn't take much to have 6 employees.
Yep.
And we're tripling your fee. That's a little bit, to me.
If we.
11 to 20, yeah.
If we add, I mean, we can. It's a good point. If we add another column, we might be able to, because it's all kind of it's all scaled. We can probably tweak things. Happy to take other feedback and then maybe figure out a way forward if there's other concerns.
I think there's higher tiers. I think, especially when I think the amount of services we're providing, especially in terms of law enforcement, for like some of our large box retailers and stuff. I think there's definitely a difference.
Yeah.
So, I my question would be, okay, I'm going from 5 employees to 6 employees. What am I getting from the city again? What am I getting for this fee? That's worth 3 times as much. It was kind of the thought that I saw when I saw this. So, Is it just because you have to have a license to do business in the city? Or is there a value that I'm getting as a business owner for that money every year?
Law enforcement, good roads, a good professional staff, good parks.
The privilege of.
No, I mean, I think we all understand that. I think Taylor's point, which I agree with, is again, those middle two tiers, right? Like,
I would agree.
I have 5 employees, I hire a 6th employee and my fee is doubling.
Yeah,
Like, there's nothing's changing other than now I just feel like I'm getting
Right.
gouged.
So it's possible, to the point, you could add additional tiers between the 6 and 20, or it's literally a math and say, how many employees do you have? And you just run the math. So it's blank plus blank per employee.
More like the old,
And so
that was the old model. That
on, for the middle tiers.
Or you could do it like taxes, like your first 5 employees are this rate, your next 5 are this rate,
Yeah.
you know, it builds on it.
It just feels, the middle feels onerous to me. Like, I'm fine with the low and I'm fine with the high. You
yeah,
know.
and you don't want to discourage somebody. You don't want to discourage somebody from hiring somebody, right?
I know, but
You know what I mean?
Nobody's gonna not hire a 6th employee over $150, but
I'm gonna come in and say.
but they might just not have a, maybe they wouldn't even have to file and have a business license. I mean,
Dun and Bradstreet has pretty good info.
Yes, they do.
Does this compare to what other cities are doing?
This model was based on the city of Tigard. So very similar, sort of in buckets, fairly large, similar to this.
Similar points, are they higher or lower?
Mixed. I think I don't know exactly what they did to get to the numbers in each category, but it's mixed. Ours are gonna be higher at the larger and I think a little bit less at the smaller, if I'm recalling correctly for Tigard. There's a lot of approaches. It's a little, and they get fairly convoluted, actually. Hillsboro's fairly complex. Whether you're headquartered or not, whether you're a small bit, I mean, there's kind of all these.
define small business.
These inputs, yeah.
I mean, I would think like the 6 to 10 in somewhere in the $200+ range, and the 11 to 20 maybe in the $400 range, and then add a last tier.
But I think,
You know, and then, I mean, I could easily, I'm not gonna, but you can make lots of arguments if it's a retail type business, consumer, focused business, or a manufacturer.
But they're trying to keep it simplified, because you don't want to have.
The
massive-
key from my perspective is, let's update it now in something, and then make sure that, businesses that work with the city, they all have a damn business license. Businesses that interact with the city all have a business license. And I'm not sure, I have no idea what is accurate to that. I mean, does PG have a business license? Northwest Natural have a business license? They all should.
I don't think I ever had one when I had my business.
Anybody who, check Empire
But I don't have it anymore.
Somebody does though.
So, and I'm assuming it's the number of employees in Sherwood.
yes,
Okay.
Yep.
So Intel moved their headquarters here.
10,000 employees.
Yeah, there you go.
big thing. It seems like if I'm hearing about 20 and under, maybe a relook at those fees are between 5 and 20.
That's what I look. And a higher tier, to Tim's point. The top tier.
Okay. We can bring something back.
So small, medium, large, and extra large. 0 to 10.
For the retailers, yeah.
0 to 10 being small, and 11 to 20 being middle, and then your large 21 to 50, and then extra large. I don't know.
Yeah, it does feel like 0 to 2 and 3 to 5. Let's just combine those. Like,
Yeah.
what are we doing?
0 to 5.
0 to 5.
It's good feedback.
Awesome.
Anything else?
Any other questions?
The main deal is when to bring this to you, so when you see the fee schedule in May, June for adoption, you aren't surprised.
So the next time we'll see this will be when? At budget committee? Okay.
We baked in the budgets.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Eric.
Yep, thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you for doing it. And we are adjourned, and we'll start our regular meeting